A couple of weeks ago, I made a video showing off the worst to best Donkey Kong Bonanza boss battles. Well, today I'm doing the easiest to the most difficult boss battles in this game. Now, I will be the first one to tell you, maybe not the first one to tell you, that Donkey Kong Bonanza's boss battles are not that difficult, and takes a little while for them to even start ramping up a little bit. So this might not be the most difficult boss battle ranking that I've ever did, or not even close actually, but still, it's one that I definitely wanted to do to talk about and see if you guys agree with my picks. If you enjoy ranking videos like this, let me know by leaving a like, subscribing, and sharing the video. We are super close to 400,000 subscribers, and you guys can make it happen by the end of this year by simply leaving a like and subscribing to stay up to date on all things Donkey Kong and Nintendo in general. Let's see how many we can get to subscribe from this video alone, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. But let's get into every single boss battle ranked from easiest to hardest in Donkey Kong Bonanza. Coming in at number 20 as possibly the easiest boss in the game is the first boss battle with Poppy Kong. This one is absolutely a joke. She's apparently invisible, but you can see her shift in and out of reality, so you can see exactly where she is. Plus, on top of that, you can see the moving flower petals of the stage, so it's really no challenge whatsoever to see where she's moving from. And on top of all of that, she moves incredibly slow, so you can literally just play around and just hit her as soon as she runs into a wall. That's literally her only attack, is running at you with her half invisibility. It's absolutely a joke of a boss battle and feels almost as easy as the Brutals from Mario Odyssey. Coming in at number 19, we have Peekabruiser, which is the first boss of the game, which is extremely easy. Now, there's two phases here, which makes this a tiny bit harder than the first Poppy Kong boss battle, where you have to bust apart all of its debris in order to reach the core, and then a quick little round 2 where you have to get to the top of a hill in order to hit the core that's sitting on top, trying to rebuild its body. Like I said, this really isn't a difficult boss battle. Most of your damage is going to come from chip damage from the little minions that surround them, but for the most part, this is a very simple boss battle, and it's supposed to be. It's the first one of the game. Coming in at number 18, we have Poppy Kong version 2. Now, I previously said that this one was probably one of my most frustrating bosses in the game, simply because I was out of Banandium energy, so I couldn't use the snake slow-mo ability in order to hit her, because every time I did when she wasn't in slow-mo, it really wouldn't do anything to her. She'd just disappear and respawn somewhere else. Now, this wasn't a difficult boss battle, but I was just getting frustrated, but I found out from you guys that there's various ways that you can actually defeat this boss, and it still is a absolute walk in the park, especially if you have Banandium energy. You can probably use 1 bar of energy just to take her out 3 times before she even can do anything. Once again, Poppy Kong just being like another brutal boss battle and not really putting up a fight. The first Grumpy Kong boss fight is extremely easy. It looks a lot scarier than it is, where all you have to do is just start breaking the thing down. His giant club attacks will probably never hit you, and neither will his giant stomps, where you're so quick at beating this boss, it might only take around 30 seconds to take him out. Now, he does try to slam the ground on you sometimes, so you have to move out the way real quick, which can be a slight bit challenging, but for the most part, it's just a hack and slash, or hack and punch in this case, where eventually you just need to climb up to the top and start wailing on Grumpy Kong. Now, he does have one attack where he can try to hit you with his pickaxe, so yep, there's some difficulty there, because we really haven't had any so far. Next, we have Peekabruiser, which is a tiny bit harder than the original. There's just more of those peekaboo voids, whatever they're called, all over the stage, and these little void holes will open up in the ground, so if you fall in, you'll fall into a pit of these little creatures. But it's the same premise. You chase the thing around the stage, beating it up slowly, but I never really found myself taking a whole lot of damage, if any. You just jump over the voids and then just keep punching him until, once again, phase 2, he creates this mound, climb up to the top, and take him out before he starts spawning in another form for himself. Now, there's a good chance you could take a decent amount of damage from this one, but once again, it's mostly from chip damage, so I hardly count that as difficult. Now we start to see enemies actually having more than like 1 attack. Stomping Clomper, his main goal is to just stomp on you, and he has 2 different forms. One where he has normal, like, stone feet, and the second phase where he'll have concrete feet, where you'll need to be Kong Bonanza or hit it with another giant debris. But for the most part, he just walks around the stage trying to stomp on you. It's not that difficult. You probably will never get stomped on, but this time it's not just a complete hack and slash at its feet. You actually have to move out of the way in between hits, or you're gonna get stomped. So it does add a tiny bit of difficulty, just because you can't stay complacent and just wail on his feet the entire time. After his feet are gone, all you have to do is take out his head in order to reach the core inside, and you've completed the boss battle. K Stomping Clomper is a difficult one to place, because technically it can be easier, but the boss itself is harder than the previous version, and let me tell you what I mean. This time he'll have a stone foot and a magma foot, which means you can't just run up and punch that magma foot. It also creates a lake of magma underneath it, so you really have to be careful, especially when that's the last one left. Now, is this easy? Yes, but is this a tad bit harder than the first version? Yes, but what makes this a little bit easier technically is the Elephant Bonanza. You can literally just suck up all the debris from his feet and immediately knock him down. I mean, you can obliterate this boss in seconds with the Elephant Bonanza. So technically, it's really easier than the first boss battle because of that. But also, the boss battle is technically harder. I'm kind of in between, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to say it's a tad bit harder just because the boss's design is technically supposed to be a tad bit harder. But if you use that Elephant Bonanza, you can bust through this boss battle in seconds. On this list, I am including the Great Harmonial. And this boss battle isn't really a boss battle. It's more like a little special event in the game. But you know what? I'm counting it because I can. And it's not hard, but it's not necessarily super easy either, because at first I thought you just had to hit each face one time, but no, you had to hit each face twice. So depending on where that first rock hits, it may not leave you a lot of room to land a second one. And I found myself actually not necessarily having a hard time, but having to actually lock in the final seconds because I was going a little too slow. But still, I thought it was a cool boss battle, and it has some difficulty thanks to the timer, and it's really making you have to realize, okay, I gotta go quicker than this, because you can definitely run out of time if you're going way too slow and you're not angling right. Not to mention, towards the end of the boss fight, tons of vines will pop out and stretch out to try to hit you, so there is a little bit of difficulty to this one. For number 12, we have Phase 2 of King K Rool. Yes, I'm counting this as a separate boss battle as well, and this one isn't too difficult, but it is if you're not paying attention. The only attack that K Rool will have is dashing at you with his propeller attack and also making the stage smaller and changing the form of it. You just have to watch out for really falling down, because if you fall down, you'll probably have to restart the battle all over again. Now, if you have any balloons at this point, it'll just save you if you fall down, so it's not a big deal, and since this is the end of the game, odds are you're probably going to have a lot of balloons saved. So it's not that difficult. You pick up some debris, you toss it at him, and a lot of the time he comes out of the side walls just kind of posing and messing around, so you have plenty of time to throw debris at him. Really not a difficult boss battle whatsoever. Even his final charge at the end, he just kind of stands still, and it gives you a lot of time to throw debris. Even when I messed up a little bit, I still had plenty enough time to hit him with the chunk of Banandium Gold. But with that said, it's a fun boss battle, but still incredibly easy. Coming in at number 11, we have Mad Mixer, which is also a very easy boss battle. You're noticing a trend in this game, but I found myself actually taking unnecessary damage the most from this boss out of any other one that we've seen so far. And that was really just simply due to the fact that I wasn't really paying attention. It's really hard to rank these bosses so far on their difficulty because, once again, this one is a breeze if you hit all your shots. But some of them you'll actually have to aim, as there's giant debris walls blocking him, and then you have to pay attention to those lasers that kind of come out of nowhere, which you can accidentally run into, which I did a couple of times. But besides that, the boss battle is still relatively easy, and outside of those lasers, there's nothing else that's going to start to try to harm you in this boss battle itself. Which means at number 10, we have to have the Mad Mixer Remix boss battle in the Feast layer. This one is pretty much the same exact thing, but this time it'll alternate between giving you salt rocks and also boom rocks. And you have to use the salt rocks in order to melt the walls around him, and the boom rocks in order to blow him up. Now, it's the same premise. The only thing that's coming at you and trying to attack you really are the lasers. Even the little slug creatures don't seem to be firing anything at you the entire time. They're just there for show. But besides that, it's still a pretty easy boss battle. Number 9, we have the Sinister Bluster Wing. You actually chase this one through multiple different areas of the Tempest layer, and it looks a lot scarier and creepier than it actually is. All you're going to do is grab the debris that it drops on the stage in order to stick it to its 2 wings, and then you can wail on the head. That's literally all you're going to be doing. But Phase 2, when you fight it for real, makes it a little bit more difficult, as lightning is striking from above and giant tornadoes are forming from the Bluster Wing itself, and you have to actually grab the debris from the outside of the stage as well, so it's putting you to work a little bit more in this one. Now, still, I don't think this boss is anywhere near difficult. Shoot, even the boss rush form of this felt very simple, even easier than the original form, so yeah, this boss didn't really pose too much of a threat even in the late game. Coming in at number 8, we have Grumpy Kong version 2. Now, I've heard online that this boss battle can also be done extremely fast as well. If you just get the light to shine on the top of Grumpy Kong, you can, I guess, just climb up to the top and wail on him. I didn't do that. Instead, I wanted to take out his core first. So I guess it's just depending on how you fight this boss battle. Well, I thought it was a little bit more difficult because now he has a boom rock club, and also you have to jump up in order to hit the rocks on the ceiling in order to shine light down and have him jump into the light in order for you to take out his body, because the crystal on his body is only reacted to the light, which allows you to break it down. And he also had multiple swings now on the top, very similar to that of Bowser from Super Mario Odyssey, where he tried to fake you out with his pickaxe swings and you have to know when to jump over them. I thought that was pretty cool, but also could be a little difficult until you learn down the pattern. But still, pretty easy in this game. Now, naturally, Abracadabra would be way lower on this list. Also, thank you guys for helping me pronounce this correctly, because I don't know what the heck I was thinking with Abracadabra, whatever I said last time. But this boss can be cheesed to the moon and back, man. All you have to do is use the ostrich Bananza and just fly to each section, dodging every single section with vines. It's that simple. But the reason I put it higher is simply because of the boss rush version. It actually does a lot more. It actually forces you sometimes to land on these vine paths simply because you won't reach it by flying there. And also on the third phase, he'll move around the battle arena so quickly, you actually have to gauge where he's going to go next, and simply just flying and trying to reach him won't be enough. So it's not necessarily difficult in the sense of he's going to do a lot of damage to you, it's difficult in the sense of predicting his patterns and where he's going to go, and forcing you to actually land on his vines this time around. But once again, still not a difficult boss battle. Number 6, we have the very first battle with King K Rool. This boss battle I didn't find to be that difficult, and I was admittedly kind of underwhelmed by it at first without knowing what was going to happen next and all the extra stuff to the ending. But yeah, this was pretty much just a part 1 of his final boss battle, where part 2 he had a lot more moves and a lot more going on all over the stage. It was very simple once I figured out that all I had to do was punch the giant balls right back at him, because yeah, nothing else was touching me after I learned that. It was just a constant barrage of running away, using the elephant Bananza to suck up the molten debris, and just using the Kong Bananza in order to punch things right back at him. And yeah, that elephant Bananza just makes life so much easier in this game, where you can just suck up everything that's near you. You don't have to worry about anything hitting you because of that. We are now down to the final 5, and this one might be a little surprising. The very final boss in the game, the final form of King K Rool. K Rool, King of Rot. This boss battle might seem like a chaos-filled mess at first, which might make it very difficult for some. But once I kept replaying it and realized what I was supposed to do in the meta way of completing this, I genuinely had no issues whatsoever, like not even in the slightest bit. I still think it's one of the best boss battles in the game, if not the best boss battle in the game, but even with that said, it's pretty easy to take him out. You're just going to be constantly punching back the giant iron balls that he shoots at you in different ways, and that's probably the hardest part of the game. Just the different ways that he shoots those balls at you, whether they're bouncing or twirling around on the floor, because everything else he does can be combated with all the different Bananza transformations, especially, once again, that good old elephant Bananza. All you have to do is sit around the stage and just suck up all the debris, and whatever he hits at you or throws at you, use that same debris in order to turn everything gold. It's that simple, and you can throw the gold at his giant arms that he formed. You can throw the gold inside of his giant blunderbuss when he goes to suck up the debris, which will clear out the entire arena. So yeah, don't let my missing hearts at the top left fool you. It was mostly from me just playing around and trying to figure out how to attack him the very first time, and once I figured it out and replayed this multiple times, I beat him without taking an ounce of damage. It was just that simple. Coming in at number 4, we have Mucky Mug. Now this is the first boss battle in the entire game that I will give the category as somewhat hard. And only just because it's just pure chaos around the stage. There is poison muck everywhere. There's little enemies that will spawn to shoot this muck everywhere. The actual boss battle will throw muck at you in every direction. And by phase 2 and 3, there's danger everywhere you turn, including falling pieces of the ceiling. You have to actually melt this guy down piece by throwing pieces of salt at it. And by phase 3, he'll be gigantic, meaning you have to throw so much salt in order to not only melt him, but take out the minions around you and also the debris that's poisoning the floor beneath you, while also looking out for falling debris from the ceiling. It's a lot going on. It's still not necessarily the hardest thing I've ever done, or I wouldn't even necessarily call it hard, but it definitely did get to the point where I said, ooh, okay, I could definitely see some people having issues with this one. For the boss rush form, it got maybe a teensy bit harder, this time giving you a smaller stage surrounded by electricity, and also the pillars of salt are now on the outside of the stage and in the form of the salt pillar enemies that you have to pick up and use. Like I said, it never got to the point where I felt myself about about to lose, but still, it definitely ramped up in difficulty compared to any other boss on this list by far. Coming in at number 3, we have Inflaminite, one of my favorite boss battles from the entire game. I just love the process of taking this thing out, by trapping it in snow, breaking it free, and then chasing down the little snail guy using your zebra Bananza. Now, the first time you fight this thing, it isn't that much of a challenge. It's rather just a fun boss fight, believe it or not. But it's when the second time you fight him where it gets kind of crazy, and that's during the boss rush, where now the outside of the arena is full of molten lava, and there's not that much snow for you to pick up and throw at it. But perhaps the most difficult part, hands down, is chasing it down on its little path that it leaves behind, because now it also leaves behind lava that takes forever to cool off. So I found that to actually be kind of difficult. Not to mention, he also gets bigger and bigger with each phase, with round 3, him being absolutely massive, leaving you hardly any room to move around on. So it's not necessarily the actual boss that makes this very difficult, it's more along the lines of the terrain around him, the lava that's literally everywhere. You'll just aimlessly run and step in lava or fall down from the top into lava, which makes this pretty difficult. But I love the different phases and I love the different parts of this. This is easily probably one of my best boss battles I've played in this entire game by far, and learning that it's better off to just throw a piece of debris at him instead of chase him down on that lava path made things a lot better. But this is one of the few bosses in the entire game that caused me to lose all of my lives the first go round. Now, these final 2 boss battles I believe to be actually difficult in some capacity. If you're not really familiar with the controls and with the movement, you might have a tough time with this boss. Now, the first time you fight Void Kong, you'll chase him through various different layers, where it's your job just to pretty much chase him down and punch him. But while you're trying to do that, he's causing a barrage of random attacks to happen. He'll cause things to come up from the ground, lava to form all over the terrain, and giant enemies to spawn. He can pretty much do anything and creates this crazy obstacle course for you to dodge in order to reach him each time. Not only did I find this to be extremely fun and satisfying, but there's also so many times I found myself actually losing lives. Now, by this point in the game, you probably only have around 4 or 5 hearts, depending on how you've managed your skill tree, but I only had 4, and I found myself getting absolutely obliterated by his attacks here. Like, there was a couple points in time where I couldn't even see what was happening. I was just blowing up from everything. And the final phase doesn't get much easier. I couldn't believe how difficult this was for just like the midpoint of the game. And not even that, I still think I was a little bit before the midpoint of this game. For that final phase, you have to also take out the machines around the center of this giant rock formation, which then will allow you to reach Void Kong. And each machine is guarded by a wall of some sort of debris. So I was actually pleasantly impressed by the difficulty level of this boss battle, but it's not too bad considering the fact that you can actually get to save the game in between each layer that you chase them in, so it feels like little branching pieces of boss battle that you put together. So if you lose one of the phases, you just start that phase all over again. It wasn't too much of a loss if you messed up. But of course, that means number 1 is the final fight with Void Kong towards the end of the game. This thing had me doing so many crazy things, and even when I had it down, I still found myself taking unnecessary damage. In the first phase, you have to throw these little blue stones in order to create paths for you to walk across in order to reach him. Now, if you're good enough, you can actually hit him with a stone in mid-air instead of running all the way up and punching him. But during this phase, he has lasers firing at you, gold rockets blasting at you through the air, and giant formations of goop that he'll create. And all of it can be definitely challenging if you don't know what's coming up. But once again, it was that final phase that just showed me everything that this little monkey had in his arsenal, because he was firing everything. Enemy spawns, lava all over the terrain that you actually had a surfboard over in some sections just to cross, but you had to take out the machines, all guarded by its own terrain. Watch out for falling debris, enemy debris, lava on the ground. There was so much happening at every given point in time. You even had to have him use his own attacks in order to open up sections for you, because you could not use any of your Bananza transformations with this boss battle, which shows you how much more difficult this game becomes when you have no abilities. And that can be said about the rest of this game. If you could battle most of these bosses without transforming into any of the Bananza transformations, like of course that OP elephant, I feel like most of these bosses will be a lot harder than what they were, like Abracadabra for instance, if you didn't have the ostrich transformation. This final fight with Void Kong was not only one of the best, but it was also one of the hardest in the game. But thank you so much once again for tuning in, and let me know down below what boss battle was the hardest for you in Donkey Kong Bonanza and which was the easiest, and do you agree or disagree with my list? Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out, and like always, I hope you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you all on the next one. See ya, guys.